Look, most of us know the story of Easter, right? But today, we're going to look at it from a totally different angle. We're not just talking about the event itself, but about the birth of the idea of Easter. We're going to be detectives trying to piece together how its meaning was built, bit by the very first people who lived through it. All right, let's jump in. I mean, just imagine for a second you witness something impossible, something that turns everything you thought you knew about life and death completely upside down. Where do you even start to explain that? And that's the exact spot the first disciples found themselves in. An empty tomb? That's not an answer. That's a massive, world-breaking question mark. So if we're going to solve this thing, we've got to go right back to square one. We're going to follow the breadcrumbs just like they did and see how they went from being totally confused and scared to, well, to a revolutionary new way of seeing God, the world, and even themselves. So our first clue, it's not a thing you can hold. It's something they did. It looks like the very first thing that got flipped on its head after the resurrection was this idea of who the message was even for. All of a sudden, this message it broke out of its borders. Okay, so this is where a guy named Cornelius walks onto the scene. He's a Roman centurion, an army officer. Now, you have to understand, for the disciple Peter, a devout Jew, just stepping foot in this guy's house, that was a huge no-no, totally against the rules. But something's different now. In the wake of the resurrection, he finds himself just tossing the rulebook out the window and standing right there in this outsider's home. And then Peter just drops this bombshell. Check out that first word right there, whoever. He doesn't say us, he doesn't say our tribe, he says whoever. Yeah, the commentary we're drawing from calls this a straight-up revolution, and it's easy to see why. Peter's realizing right in that moment that this promise, it's not some exclusive club anymore.
And this right here, this is basically the first big piece of our puzzle. The resurrection, it turns out, wasn't some quiet little miracle for a select few. No, it was like a giant explosion that just blew the doors clean off their whole religious world, turning a private promise into an open invitation for absolutely everyone.
Okay, so the message is now for everybody. It's gone global. But that just creates a whole new problem, right? Like, if this was God's plan from the get-go, shouldn't there be some hint of it in their own holy books? And that's our next clue. They had to go back and basically reread everything they thought they understood.
This is super interesting. Think of this as a before and after shot. On the left, you've got the original idea from Psalm 118, this rejected stone that was a symbol for the nation of Israel. But now, look to the right. After the resurrection, they see it totally differently. For them, that stone is Christ, the one who was tossed aside by the powerful, but who God made the cornerstone of, well, of everything. And so they start hearing old verses like this one in a completely new way. What used to sound like a song about the nation surviving it was the personal voice of the Messiah himself, literally shouting victory over death. It's like the present was a flashlight, shining back and revealing new things in the past. All right, so the message is for everyone. Check. And you can find it if you reread the scriptures. Check. But what does that actually mean for me? When I wake up on a Tuesday morning, how does it change my actual life? That brings us to our next piece of the puzzle, the personal impact. And this is where the Apostle Paul comes in with this just wild, mind-bending idea. He doesn't say, hey, one day you're gonna be resurrected. He says, no, you are resurrected right now. He argues that through faith, your old self has already died. That's in the rearview mirror. The transformation, it's already happened. But wait, here's the catch. If it's a done deal, then what do we do? And Paul's answer is everything. He says the real challenge now is to start living like this new reality is true, in all the small, boring, everyday parts of your life. And this is really the heart of it. It's not about running away from your life to go be holy somewhere else. It's about changing your life from the inside out. It's about taking your ordinary life, your job, your family, all of it, and just injecting it with this brand new power of forgiveness and hope. So we've got these massive ripple effects, right? It changes the community, it changes how you read the Bible, it changes you personally. But all of that, it all flows from one single event. So now we have to go back to ground zero, to the strange, quiet clues left behind on Easter morning. John's gospel paints this really frantic picture. It starts in the dark, nobody knows what's going on. Mary Magdalene gets there, sees the stone's been moved, and her mind jumps to the only logical conclusion. Someone stole the body.
So she takes off running to tell the others. And that's when Peter and John just start sprinting towards the tomb to see for themselves.
So they get there, totally out of breath, and the first thing they see? Yep, Mary was right. The body's gone. But, that doesn't really explain anything. In fact, it just makes the whole thing even weirder. And then they notice the first really strange clue. The burial cloths, the linens, they're just lying there. Now think about it. Why would a thief take the time to unwrap a body and then leave the expensive linen cloths behind? That makes absolutely no sense. And this might be the most important clue of all. The smaller cloth, the one that was on his head, it wasn't just lying there with the rest. It was folded up, neatly, and set off to the side. That's not chaos. That's order. That's not a robbery. That's something else entirely. And for the disciple John, looking at all this, that was it. That was enough. The empty tomb, the linens lying there, that neatly folded cloth, the Bible just says he saw and he believed. For him, in that moment, all the puzzle pieces just clicked into place. He believed. Okay, but what did he believe exactly? I mean, he hadn't seen Jesus yet. This wasn't belief based on physical proof. It was a different kind of seeing. It was a leap. And that leap is the final, most important piece of our whole puzzle.
And the gospel writer throws in this really important detail. It says that up until that very moment, they hadn't understood from their own scriptures that this was supposed to happen. So, see, it wasn't like their reading of the Bible prepared them for this. It was the other way around. This event was about to unlock the Bible for them.
And this is the core idea from the commentary we're looking at, and it kind of echoes the philosopher St. Anselm. For them, faith wasn't the last step in a logical argument. No, faith was the key that unlocked the door. As soon as John took that leap and believed, suddenly the scriptures made sense. Suddenly this mission to everyone made sense. And the idea of living this new life, it all became possible.
So here's the big takeaway. The sources we're looking at basically say, yeah, the story starts with an empty tomb, but that's not the real proof. The real lasting evidence of the resurrection, it's the effects. It's people breaking down walls between them. It's individual lives that are totally transformed by hope. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. If the way the first Christians figured this whole thing out was by looking at its effects, a wider community, a new way of reading their Bible, a different way to live, then maybe that's still the best way to understand it today, which has to make you wonder, right? What are the signs of that same resurrection happening in the world around us right now?